It's Wednesday, July 25th. I'm Paul Joseph Watson. This is InfoWars Nightly News. Coming up on the show tonight.
Tonight, Paul Joseph Watson speaks with investigative journalist George Heminger about the growing numbers of TSA officers appearing at train stations and bus stations nationwide. Then, Mayor Bloomberg illegally asked police to strike as elitists wage an all-out assault on our Second Amendment rights. All that and more on the InfoWars Nightly News.
Breaking news tonight on InfoWars Nightly News. House passes Ron Paul's Audit the Fed bill. In a move that serves as a capstone to Ron Paul's colourful career, the House on Wednesday approved a bill that would let Congress's chief investigators conduct a full audit of the Federal Reserve's shrouded decision-making process. And basically it passed 327 to 98. They're saying that Senate Majority Leader Harry Reid is unclear whether he has the time to carve out for the legislation this year. Other reports are saying that Reid's just going to kill it by refusing to even put it up in the Senate for a vote. So basically, this is stage one of the fight. Huge political pressure now needs to be thrown on Senator Reid to try and get this up for a vote in the Senate, because he's already passed the House. Remember, 10 years Ron Paul has been trying to get this bill through the House, a decade, and now finally today we have that victory and Audit the Fed moves forward. Of course, what it's going to do, it's going to lift the lid on the payments to foreign banks, the deliberate ploy on behalf of the Fed, telling banks, ordering banks not to lend, and then the whole intentionally engineered economic collapse is going to open a huge can of worms. It's through the House, and now we've just got to put huge pressure on to get it through the Senate. But massive victory for Audit the Fed and a crowning achievement for Congressman Ron Paul. TSA expands invasion to California train stations and bus terminals. Footage shot at the Oceanside Transit Center in Southern California documents how the rollout of TSA workers is expanding out of the airports and into train stations and bus terminals. We've actually got the interview coming up shortly with the guy who shot this footage. Basically shows TSA agents with police and drug-sniffing dogs outside this transit station in Southern California. And the TSA were actually asked by the videographer, George Heminger, what are you doing, why are you here? They basically told him, no filming, you're allowed to film, we'll let you film, but if you do, we're going to harass you and ask you questions. So again, the TSA agents are God. They're expanding out the airports. No more, you know, oh, just don't fly. No, that's not going to wash anymore. They're on the highways, bus terminals, ferry ports. They're even at prom nights, for God's sake. And now more footage of the expanding TSA occupying army. Of course, back in April, they tried to pull this stunt on Houston buses. Massive public revolt. People infuriated, up in arms about it. They had to suspend the program. So we'll see if it unfolds similarly in Southern California. But what's exciting about this is it's one of the top stories on the Drudge Report this evening. So we got hundreds of thousands of people watching this video, and we've got the interview coming up shortly. And so let's take a look at the clip that George shot of the TSA agents in Southern California.
So hey guys, what's up? Hey, this is G4T. I'm at Oceanside Metrolink Station, Transit Center, and behind me you have TSA agents. There's about 6, 7 of them with some drug sniffing dogs too as well. And I talked to them. Apparently you can take photographs and video at the train station. You're still allowed. You may get questioned for it, but I did speak to them. It's a relatively new thing here, but I just wanted to show you guys that it is happening. There are TSA at the train stations in California.
Fox News Channel questions narrative of Batman Massacre. A local Fox News channel came off sounding more like InfoWars than the mainstream media when it listed a series of unanswered questions that challenge the official narrative of the Batman Massacre and suggest a wider plot. And basically in this clip, which you can see on Infowars.com, it's out of Cincinnati, it's Fox News 19, and it's intriguing because it shows how the establishment media increasingly is being forced to act more like the alternative media in order to retain its viewership and remain relevant, because they're having to ask the questions that the likes of the New York Times, the Washington Post aren't asking to retain their viewers. And basically in this clip, the reporter, Ben Swan, lists all the questions surrounding the tragic shooting in Colorado last week. And they're the same questions that have been shared by the alternative media community. Multiple eyewitnesses we know saw the shooter, the alleged shooter, James Holmes, talking to somebody on a cell phone, standing in the emergency exit and beckoning someone to come towards him. Of course, we had the initial police reports of 2 shooters. That quickly dissipated as the lone wolf theory was aggressively pushed. And then, of course, we've got how he was able to arm himself with this arsenal of weapons, given the fact that he was an unemployed graduate student. Then, of course, you've got the compelling fact that, you know, he's laid out his apartment with this intricate and professionally set up booby-trapped network of bombs. And then the first thing he does when he's arrested is tells the police that his apartment is booby-trapped. I mean, if you're trying to kill as many people as possible, and he's spent all this time and effort and money booby-trapping his apartment to a professional degree that they said was reminiscent of a warlike situation, why is he telling the police as soon as he's arrested? Then, of course, you got the fact that he's a neuroscience student. How on earth has he obtained professional-level explosive skills that would be more typical of an expert? None of this makes sense. And it's interesting that Fox News Channel, this local Fox News channel in Cincinnati, is now being forced to ask these questions because the mainstream media just isn't asking them. So more unfolding developments, more unanswered questions with the shooting in Colorado last week. But now we're going to hand back to Austin, Texas for another story from our reporter, Linda West.
Thanks, Paul. This is Linda West reporting for InfoWars Nightly News. The Batman Massacre just keeps raising more and more questions. Just recently, the Colorado police have recovered from the Colorado University, where James Holmes attended, a notebook that was sent to his professor over a week before the massacre actually occurred. They have no idea why the notebook was not delivered to the professor and why it sat languishing around the mailroom for over a week. It raises some questions as to if this could have been averted if it had actually been found, because the notebook details the massacre and actually shows pictures. He drew stick figure pictures of stick figures being blown away by bullets and stick figures shooting the people. And when I say figures, I am speaking plural, which again raises the question, did this man act alone? And also, why in the world would he send this notebook to somebody which could have stopped the massacre from happening if it had been read? Which then also goes to say, why did he tell the police that his apartment was rigged? So let's start with some more questions that keep coming up around this event. Number one, if this gentleman was a Joker fan, and that's the reason he went and pulled off this horrible massacre, then why did he dye his hair red? The Joker rarely appears with red hair. Only in one movie did he have red hair. In all the other movies, he has green hair. So why would he choose red hair? Doesn't make any sense if that was his motive. And for that matter, where is the motive? There doesn't seem to be a revenge motive. Drugs have been seemingly brought into play, but he didn't seem to be a drug addict beforehand. He just seems to be recovering from drugs now that he's in the courtroom. And then finally, what exactly was this guy's plan on escape? Obviously, he couldn't go back to his apartment because he had it rigged to blow up. And he wasn't going to go out with a bang after shooting all these people, or he would have killed himself. So his plan was to go back and hang out by his car? It just didn't make any logical sense. So here we are once again sitting with more and more questions and no answers. But for certain, tighter gun controls are not the answer. So for our quote of the day, let's go to George W. Bush, who says, "It will take time to restore chaos." We actually have that clip by George Bush.
You're free, and freedom is beautiful. And, you know, it'll take time to restore chaos. It'll take time to restore chaos.
Now I'm sending you back to Paul Watson in England, and I'm Linda West signing off with InfoWars Nightly News.
Thanks, Linda. And again, just more amazing unanswered questions, inconsistencies with this massacre, this Batman massacre last week.